Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach and expert in the hidden job market. Very special video, had to get this off my chest because I'm seeing this all over the place, all right? A big question I will get is from professionals who are feeling buyer's remorse after accepting a role that they shouldn't have. Anish, they told me that there would be strategic impact. I start this role, nowhere to be found. I was told I would have this many resources for a team, nowhere to be found. I was told that I would never be micromanaged. And that is exactly what's going on here. What did I miss? And what can I do in the future to keep this from happening again to me? So first off, this is definitely something that can be solved. And second off, this is something that manifests in more than just one specific way. So what I want to do is I want to lead you through this so you can see what I'm talking about, okay? Arguably the biggest red flag when you're exploring a new working relationship with an employer, okay? 3 examples. I just want you to imagine this for a second. I want you to imagine that you're interviewing for a role, potential employer. Maybe you're talking to their recruiter, internal recruiter. Maybe you're talking to a hiring manager, whoever it is. Maybe you do an interview. Maybe some other step is taken. They tell you at the end of that interview verbally, thank you so much. We'll get back to you within X period of time. That time period passes. They don't say anything. You're twiddling your thumbs, trying not to think about it. Ultimately, you follow up with them. Oh, sure. Okay, great. We set it up. And at the beginning of that follow-up, they kind of give you some crap about it. Hey, glad we can finally do this. I noticed, maybe you seemed a little put out about it. You know what I mean? Anyway, let's get into it. Seeing as how you're so gung-ho for it, right? They make you feel bad for picking up the slack and doing what they told you that they would have done in the first place, right? Here's another example, okay? These are very common. Happens every single day. You're told during the hiring process or during the interview process that there's a certain range for this role. You're led to believe as you go deeper and you share more aspects of your experience and what you do, and hopefully you're understanding more of what's going on with them, that this range is in the back of your mind. Okay, you get all the way to an offer letter. You look at the offer letter, it has zero relationship whatsoever to it. Fine. You don't just laugh it off. You don't just walk away. You go in ready to renegotiate it. And in that negotiating room, you are made to feel bad for taking your eyes off of what we're trying to do here, for perhaps being a little more materialistic than we thought. We didn't realize that this was such a big issue. Absolutely, we can take a look at that. I'm a little surprised that you would bring that up. In other words, you're made to feel awkward or bad for a discrepancy that is there. Okay? Here's the third example. You're told to prepare for a one-on-one meeting with the COO. Okay? It's going to be very critical to deciding whether or not you're going to get the opportunity there. You show up, and first you're told you go through and meet 3 other people in the company, essentially are interviewed by them, and then you get a very cursory meeting with the CEO that you had spent all this time preparing for. When you bring it up, right, they actually make it seem like, well, let's say you bring it up with their internal recruiter, they'll make it seem, wow, I'm so surprised by that. I would think that FaceTime is the number one thing that you would want here, Not a word about the bait and switch that went on in terms of expectations and execution, but everything about, hey, what happened to you was not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. So what is going on here? All of what I've described to you, and you may have experienced one of these, you may have experienced a version of it, okay? It all boils down to this. They say they're going to do something. You expect that they're going to do it. They don't follow through on it. And when you follow up with them about it, rather than taking accountability, and that's the most important word here, what happens is they blame the messenger. They blame you. They blame the reaction instead of the problem or the situation that's causing it. This is a roaring bellwether of a company that you need to stay away from. Because if a company will not practice accountability, crystal clear accountability through every stage of the hiring process, and if they don't, if they're not willing to oh, my bad, sorry, it's as simple as that. If they cannot apologize and they cannot hold you accountable, and hold themselves, accountable, this is a terrible work situation. Regardless of the other details, quote unquote, this is a company that will not think twice about reneging on anything. And this is not a place that you want to be investing any time in. Okay? So, How do you keep yourself protected in a practical way from this? Okay. Probably the easiest thing that you can do that I don't see enough people doing, take notes. Okay. See them and have them see you take notes during the interview, right? Write down the major details, the major points that were covered, right? The major pieces of pain that you've identified, the major aspects of your history that you guys talked about, right? Have a running note of that after the interview, after the phone call, whatever it is, go deeper into that, right? The further you go into exploring an opportunity, the more you should have some running notes that give you a historical data-driven log of what has been talked about, who you've met, what the problems are, and where we are right now. Therefore, when you're in the process and they try to have you recover old ground, or they try to pretend that that's not there, again, rather than just resting on one point of misaccountability, you actually have a track here. You can say, here's what we spoke about, here's where we left things. Just so we're clear, here's what I expected in terms of that next step. What can we do here, right? Having that log is really critical, and most people don't do it. So what happens is an employer will jerk you around a little bit, but you have no paper trail, you have no email trail, you have no data trail here, right? So it's essentially your opinion on one thing versus their take, and that's not enough, right? So definitely taking notes and having a running account is going to be very valuable. That also helps when when they're trying to move you through meeting people that it's not important for you to meet, right? There is something to be said for the fact that there's a minimum amount of information, relationship building, and pain identified that you need to start working at a place. And if you keep interviewing someone past that point, you are sabotaging their ability and you're sabotaging your ability. Therefore, as the best candidate, part of your job is to also send out the signals that says, hey, it's time for us to move into an offer. It's not time for us to have panel interview number 2 or panel interview number 3. Having these notes and having this information is the best weapon in your arsenal to safeguard against that. So you can say, hey, let's not waste these 30 minutes rehashing what's been going on. Here's what's been happening. So your authority and your leverage is increasing there. Here's what I think. What's your take on this, right? And now you're in a new zone, right, where you can evaluate. That's how you want to move this. If they try to ask you for a follow-up interview and they have no reason or rationale as to why, use your notes to justify why the next thing we need to be negotiating here is the offer, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that, but this is arguably the best thing that you can do, okay? Holding the line based on the information that you have gathered is a powerful way to hold them accountable. Ultimately, you're not going to change their behavior, right? All you can do is observe, hold your line, and act with integrity. I recently had a client who, in many ways exemplifies the ideal of what you would expect here. She was going through late stage negotiations at a tech company. They told her, listen, why don't you come in and present on the strategy that we want to implement here? Let us know how we're going to do that, what's going to happen. She looked at the lay of the land, understood the situation, and said, fine, here's what I'm going to do. She came in, basically broke down why that strategy is not going to work, the reasons why, what an alternate would be, how we would move it forward, and she openly asked plainly for their buy-in for that, right? Now, if they were an unscrupulous employer, again, what they would do is they would glom onto the fact that you didn't do what we asked you to do. How dare you question what it is? They didn't do that. They were able to see through the emotionality or the circumstance to the truth of the problem, the opportunity, the situation. And clearly what our client had laid out was a far stronger way to move forward than what they had come up with. And they were willing to move forward, right? You've got to think about this in the same way, okay? Do not allow employers or anyone to make a promise to your face and then back out on it, okay? If you do, whatever happens negatively after that is on you, because it is your job to call it out. It is your job to say, hey, you know what? Accountability was implied. Accountability is what is expected, and accountability is what is demanded if you're going to work with me. All right. Hope that makes sense. If you want to go deeper into my world, I would recommend 2 things. 1, helloanish.com. That's headquarters for our deeper training and career videos. Again, all free there. And number 2, if you're on LinkedIn, take a second to look me up. Follow me, Anish Majumdar, career coach. I'm always sharing details, advice, stuff just like this, right from the trenches of what is actually working out there, not the 99% of BS that passes for career advice. If you're interested in that, take an action right now. Don't just go back into the ether of anonymity. Talk soon.